Hello and welcome to episode 47 of our Conversations to Connect. Let's Get Real, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm Cyndi ONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. At Exceptional Connections, we offer intentional and innovative solutions to boost your business. So each month we nominate a different member of our community to have a meaningful conversation with. So be sure to make yourself comfortable with a beverage of your choice and take notes, and be sure to add comments to the chat box and questions to engage us during our conversation. So around the 45-minute mark, I'll unmute the lines and invite our listeners to ask questions, share their ahas, their epiphanies, and enter into our thought-provoking conversation. So the inspiration of our bi-weekly Conversation to Connect, Let's Get Real talks, is to create purposeful conversation. We desire to be relevant during these challenging and uncertain times and to support our community to make an impact in the world and, of course, stay connected. So as I get started, I invite you to set aside any distractions, and invest your attention to the conversation that we're about to unfold. So look for just one idea you can take away to put into action. And don't cheat yourself out of the time that you've invested here. So our Conversation to Connect this week is with Charlie Hoffman and Heather Ross. They're both from Stanwood, Washington. Welcome, Charlie and Heather.
Welcome, Cyndi. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you guys about the 4 agreements. I've got the book right here.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And how they help you make better connections. And I'm so grateful that you guys, this is the topic that we're going to be delving into today, because it's such a great book and it's such a great reminder of just wisdom and pearls of wisdom that have been brought down through the ages, and they're still, applicable today, right?
Absolutely, they are. We have been diving elbow deep into the 4 agreements for the last year, and we can't wait to share what we've learned along the way with you guys.
I'm so excited to hear your little pearls of wisdom that you've gleaned from it as well. So before we dive into this conversation, I want to take a moment and introduce Heather and Charlie. And I love the way they've done this. So they've really kind of woven both of their experiences in life and how they got to be where they are today. So Charlie grew up with a working mom and siblings left alone while mom provided for the family. Heather was born to a teen mom and eventually went to live with her grandparents. Together, they are grateful for the teaching of structure in the chaos. Charlie struggled for years with feeling like something was missing. Eventually, she learned what love is and that you can't change the past or force anyone else to change. Heather had to struggle through 2 marriages to learn to stand up for herself and learn to trust herself. Together, they are grateful for the teaching of love, to love themselves unconditionally. Charlie and Heather honor the women who taught us how to be strong, like Charlie's mom, who showed up and did the hard things even though we didn't think we could do them before. And Heather's grandma, who helped her learn to read after a brain injury as a kid. Oh my gosh. Together, they are grateful for the lessons that they are smart and can do hard things. I love that. Charlie is a Navy veteran who left for boot camp 9 days after graduating high school. She has some amazing stories. She's a wife and mother of 2. She went to school to be a teacher, but ended up teaching yoga until the world shut down because that was more flexible for her needs as a mother. Heather was a massage therapist after the birth of her son, but ended up very ill and was unable to continue. She went back to school for medical billing and again to get her associates in business. But her health continued to haunt her. And then when the world shut down, she became a virtual expert. The real blessing is when they are both working for the same company and they met. Together, Charlie and Heather show up every day working through real life issues like PTSD, learning you don't have to be a veteran to have PSD, and working through these things so that they can take back their power back over their lives and show others that they can do it too. the power of mindset, talking about it, awareness, choosing, and deciding. And that brings us to today.
Heck yeah. Woo!
Thank you so much, because just your introduction itself is just a conversation alone, right?
It really
And
is.
it's just so beautiful. So I really would like to have you guys start by sharing a little bit more about your journey. As I've shared it, I'm sure things kind of perked up. I don't want to take us off track too much, but just set the tone for, how your journey brought you to where you are today, and, what inspired you to pick the topic, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz.
So I actually read The Four Agreements a couple years before Heather and I met, which was a little over a year ago. We were working with a mutual friend, and part of our job was networking with other businesses to create
to build the relationships. So,
yeah.
to
build the relationships with business. Well,
Right.
Everything was just starting to open up and bloom in the world again, right? It's just starting to get back out there. People just starting to get back out there. And it was really, really hard. We found that the normal, let's say, masculine way of doing business was not working for us. And what could we do to change it? How can we help our community? How can we build these know, like, trust factors of businesses, build relationships, and just help each other out? And so we started doing a podcast.
And it started live on Facebook and
I accidentally
Instagram.
hit the button.
She just did it. We just did it. And we have just
That's very brave.
Yeah, right.
We just
I was
did
like,
it. We
here we
just went all
go. We're going now.
Mhm.
And so we just kept showing up every time somebody, we thought it would be hard, right? Because everything had been so hard before, but that is not the case. Women in business are ready to talk about their why, and they're ready to show up and share their message. They just don't know how to get it out there. And so it's been really great connecting and building a community a lot like yourself, right? With intent of having good conversations, of sharing what we're doing.
Sharing the real struggles of what makes it hard to begin with. We find that a lot of barriers to employment, especially for women, is parenting. We are both parents of special needs children that require a lot of our attention. So there's that. We both have our own inner turmoil that we've been dealing with. We both have different types of PTSD. So learning to work through that and learning to do business in working through that. And that's where the Four Agreements comes in, because these Four Agreements not only have changed our personal lives, but they have changed our business lives, because we communicate with people so differently, because we look at the world through a different lens.
Yes.
We have a foundation.
We do. We do. So these Four Agreements are the four pillars of our business and how we've built it for the last year, and it is thriving, and it is abundant, and it is exciting, and we look forward to going to work every day. We can't wait to get up in the morning, and
sometimes we forget to go to bed at night because we're having such a good time. It doesn't feel like we're working. And right now, that's what our business needs, right? Is those extra, sometimes you need those extra hours as you're growing, right?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
Well, you're operating in your joy, in that zone, that God zone, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So would you like me to go ahead and get into
Yeah,
the Four Agreements?
Do share the Four Agreements that we're going to be talking about.
Okay, so the Four Agreements are: be impeccable with your word is number one. Speak with integrity, say only what you mean, avoid using the word to speak against yourself or to gossip about others, and use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. Okay.
There's a
That's
whole
just number
hour
one.
conversation.
Number two, Don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. Number 3, don't make assumptions. Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life.
Not making
So
assumptions is huge. Like,
it's huge. We'll
Yeah.
get into it. We'll talk about it. And then number 4 is always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply just do your best and you will avoid that self-judgment, that self-abuse, and the regret.
That's good. That's really good stuff.
so that is just the basic overview of the entire book. So the book that Charlie's holding is the original, and this one is the companion book. This is like the study along book.
Oh, I didn't know there was such a thing.
So
Yeah.
we're going through these on our podcast right now. So
Okay.
to end the year, we're going to go through the 4 agreements with the companion book and just really get into it deep. But let's talk about how this helps you build relationships in your business.
Can I interject
specifically.
first? Because
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
before we dive in, I want to know how these 4 agreements have impacted your personal life.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh. Every day, even yesterday, I immediately caught myself making an assumption. And I was like, wow, we really just do that. We just make assumptions like all the time. Like, and I was like, wow, it's really cool. The communication level, right? So as you delve in and study the 4 agreements for yourself, you are also making those agreements with yourself. And
Yes.
since you're making those agreements with yourself, you are breaking old agreements that no longer serve you. So this goes right along with the, working through limiting beliefs. But sometimes we don't realize it's a limiting belief because it's an agreement we've made. And we didn't realize we made it because it was made for us before we were even born sometimes, especially as women. How generationally women were seen in the world, what our roles were, those, and when we spoke up, we were burned at the stake. When we spoke up, we were sent to the factory. When we spoke up, these things kept happening throughout history. And now we're so blessed that we're in this time that we have these things like social media and YouTube and Zoom that we can have our voice without being totally shut off. So I'm really excited about that.
I love that. I love that. And accountability as well. Right?
Yes.
It provides accountability. We have this, what I'm hearing from you is there's this level of awareness that wasn't there before. And you're choosing to embrace that and be accountable to it.
Yes.
So
because the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. Well, that is also to yourself. So when you go into a conversation, you don't want to say things that you don't mean, say things you're not going to follow through with, right? Because that doesn't feel good when you know that you're overwhelmed already and you're agreeing to do something else. That never feels good.
Right.
But we ignore that because we've been taught, we've been conditioned and domesticated to not listen to our inner knowing. So we've given ourselves that opportunity to really listen to that inner knowing so that we are impeccable with our word. We say what we mean when we mean what we say.
And that has, in our personal lives, our kids are beginning to understand the process. And, I have 2 teenagers and she has 1 teenager, and they're understanding, even though they have both of our boys are on the autism spectrum, they understand that being impeccable with their word feels good in their bodies.
Yes.
And they understand that it does not feel good to lie.
And it doesn't feel good when other people are not impeccable with their word. And that's so it resonates with them. So if we're all working on being impeccable with our word, not saying things we don't actually mean, it changes your whole relationship dynamic. So,
Right.
I mean, I have a kid that can say to me, "Hey, mom, you're putting your self-doubt on me." As we've gone through this, like
He's
he
catching
can
you.
recognize, like, right. I'm
They're
like,
good at that.
"Yay!" But we have that open communication. It's not like
Yeah.
he's back talking. He's like,
Yeah.
literally like, I see how you're reacting to this situation because of what's going on with you.
Right.
Like,
Right.
this is, let's, and then I can work on that. It's so cool to
Yes.
have that communication with a
Oh.
teenager, with a teenager,
How
right?
beautiful is that, right?
So,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the sassing I like to hear, because what you're doing is you're having them really think about it. And, just like you're recognizing it as an adult, but as a child, to be able to have that as a foundation and have a conversation with their parent. Oh my gosh, how rich is that?
Yeah,
Right?
these are invaluable tools in that way, because
Mhm.
it has been pure magic with dealing with our kids and their emotions and their own emotional maturity.
right.
And then also dealing with our own emotional maturity, because we
Yes.
had to, well, Heather and I both had to kind of learn
Do the
things the
work,
hard way. We
right?
had to do the work. And our kids don't have to do as much work because we've already done it. We are
Right.
domesticating them differently than we
Right.
were. So the next one of not taking anything personally. If we're not taking anything personally, we're not taking other people's trash onto ourselves.
I like this
We can give it back.
in reference to like when someone's talking to you, if you were to just put a mirror up and like their emotions that are coming out, their questions they're asking you, they're all coming from their own experiences. So if you're not taking what they're doing personally, like you literally just have a mirror and they're talking to the mirror, it's like a visual way you can help separate that out while you're trying to learn, like, these are my feelings, these are their feeling, like we're trying to figure this part out and work through it. So,
well, humans are emotional and we can get wrapped up in each other's emotions if we're not paying attention.
right.
So by not taking anything personally, you are paying attention to how they are feeling with their world in that moment, not necessarily how you are feeling in that moment. Even though if you take a step back, you're not taking it personally. How am I feeling about this situation? What am I doing? You ask yourself these questions. Am I being impeccable with my word? Am I taking it personally? You take a lot of guilt and shame off of your own shoulders.
You can hand it back.
Yep.
You'll notice when someone tries to use guilt or shame in a conversation and you're like,
wow,
no. You can like have that back. No, thank you.
Yeah, I love this because I had a situation just recently, and it hits you, and then you can step back from it and you can say, oh, something that happened in that conversation or something about me triggered that person. And it has nothing to do with me. But I have to take personal responsibility if I said something, of course, that would, but if I look back and I go, I don't think I said anything that would, but it's just whatever happened was a trigger. And
right.
so
you don't know what they have gone through.
Right.
That caused that reaction. Right. So something they've learned, they've been domesticated as normal.
Right.
You come in and you say, boo. And then all of a sudden,
yes,
that's the bad word that made
the
thing happen, and it has nothing to do with you. And that's that definitely not taking it personally.
Right. I always like to say a little prayer in that instance. It's like, okay, God, if I've said anything, or even to that person, if I've said anything to offend you, I apologize. That was not my intention. And that seems to clear the air a lot too.
On that subject, before I did yoga teacher training, I worked as a paraeducator, and my supervisor was super awful to me, and I was taking it personally. I ended up quitting that job And then in yoga teacher training, the gal who was teaching the course looked almost exactly like this person who had been awful to me. And through the course of the training, I come to understand why I was off put by the yoga teacher, even though she's a wonderful human, has a heart of gold. I was put off by her because she reminded me of the person who had not been so kind to me in the past, right?
Projecting, yeah.
Right. So I apologized to my yoga instructor about taking it personally, that she looked like this other person who had been awful to me, and I was almost taking it out on her. So I apologized to her for that. And then I ran into the gal who had been awful to me at a networking event. And we talked about what had happened. And it had been like
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years since this happened. And I didn't want to hold on to that anymore. So we had a conversation, and I was like, I don't know what you were going through back then. She had a totally different energy about her. And so we talked, and she told me that basically her boss had told her that the boss would rather fire her than risk their own job for being wrong. Right. So she was taking that out on me. You know, everybody was taking everything personally.
That old saying, the SHIT rolls downhill.
Yeah.
Right.
But because I was able to go back and talk to her about how I was feeling and what kind of.
You guys are friends now.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful? I love that.
Yeah. It was an amazing healing within our own networking business community. So if you're not taking things personally, it's magic, because you can see things from that different point of view, you know, that it's not about you, it's about them and their story.
I think this works too as like a parent too, because sometimes we're exhausted. We have all our things going on and we're like, why won't you just unload the dishwasher? Right? Like, how many times have I told you? But, you know, we're taking that personally when we could, you know, approach the situation like, hey, what's going on, because of the other 4 agreements. So let's get to the next one.
Okay. Number 3, don't make assumptions. Okay. Ask questions to express what you really want. This is the communication piece. Make sure you understand clearly what's going on without making assumptions. And because that helps you avoid the misunderstandings, avoid sadness, avoid drama, avoid blame, avoid taking it personally. You know, it just, if you're not making assumptions, you are never at fault.
Yeah.
Right.
You have control over the situation.
You do. You have control, and you can communicate better if you're not making those assumptions. Like,
I think that the hardest part of not making assumptions for me was knowing what I want versus what other people want. And I think for me, that was where the real work had to happen for this one. I remember writing, what do I want, on a piece of paper for probably 6 months before I could really answer it, just because I had so many things going on and everything was about everyone else. And I think that as women, we've been conditioned to make it about everyone else.
Yeah, that's
and we
so
don't.
true.
Yeah, and we
That's so true. We do that. One thing that occurs to me is the problem with making assumptions is that we actually believe that they're true.
Yes. Wholeheartedly.
Right?
I just
we don't doubt it. We believe it. Like, this is the gospel
truth, right? I had a thing happen just this morning. We put some graphics together for a client and sent them their way, and they sent them back with some comments and suggestions. And I wanted to make sure that I understood what they wanted. So instead of being like, oh, they want to change everything, blah, 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 I got them on the phone and I pulled up the graphics on my computer and I said, okay, this one, what do you like? What do you not like? What do you want to change? Okay, this is why we did it this way. Do you want to leave it that way? Or do you want to change it? And I walked them through each thing, and it was barely anything that I had to change. So instead of scrapping the whole project and starting over, I just had
Because
to
we get in
tweak
our
a few
heads,
things,
right? We
right?
get in our heads
Yeah.
and we assume that that means they don't like any of it. When really they're just like, why am I floating in the, the air?
Right.
No, look at this picture made this person look like they were like kind of floating in the air. Like, that's a really good question. Why
do you
let's
look
fix that for you,
But it's the magic of communication.
Mhm.
And I think
Yes.
that's a piece of this too with technology is, I mean, I have a situation with my boys right now, and if they would stop texting each other and just give each other a call, it would be poof over with, right?
Oh gosh.
I have a
yes.
feeling that our children forget, or even our employees forget, that they have other people they can ask. Because yesterday, my son asked me, hey, Mom, can I go to the Y after school? I was like, well, you have an appointment. Your sister also has an appointment. She's going to take you.
You can message
You
her.
can message her and see if
She could pick you up.
like
And then she messages Mom, and Mom's like, why can't they talk to each other? So they do forget that they can
Mhm.
just talk to each other.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of texting because I think there's, especially when there's a long text, when you're trying to work out an issue, it's like it's lost in translation.
yes.
gosh.
A lot of
yes.
potential for, making assumptions in terms of
Mhm.
what they're saying and what they're not saying.
Mhm.
And I've just found that,
Especially-
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, especially in business and giving feedback to each other, because
Yeah.
sometimes we'll read it and we'll take it personally, but we hear someone say it and we can hear where their intent is, right?
Mhm.
So you can hear where they're coming from. Oh, well, that makes sense. Instead of taking it personally,
Right.
instead of making the assumption, you can get the clarity. So something I often recommend is doing a voice clip or stopping and just recording a video and sending it. Like if you are going to send something, don't just a text. Like it doesn't read well.
Mhm. And then the last piece, number 4, is to always do your best. Okay. Your best is going to change whether you feel good, whether you feel bad, whether you're healthy, whether you're sick, whether you have enough energy or not. Right.
And your best is enough.
Your best is enough. We forget that, you know what, we tried our best and that's got to be enough, because we try to overdo it and then we end up running ourselves into the ground in business, in relationships, in our personal lives. And I've had to take a step back and be like, hey, my family, hey guys, I'm getting very, very full with my business. So I need you guys to step up and do things like the laundry, help me out. We've got to work together as a team, because if we don't work together as a team, it's not going to work at all. And so as long as everybody is doing their best, then nobody can be blamed for, something not happening, because if
Right.
everybody's doing their best, then, that's
So
really all
along
you
with
can do.
making assumptions or not making assumptions,
Mhm.
always doing your best means that other people are also always doing their best in the moment.
Mhm.
So you're doing your best and so are they. So if they're doing their best and you're doing your best, is there really a problem? Like,
No, that's
can we
true. Like
work
even
on
just
that?
verbalizing it, right? Even just if there's a situation where everybody's feeling tense, everybody's strained, which is a lot of that going on right now.
Right.
And just to have a conversation about it. So that's the thread that I'm hearing through all of these 4 agreements is clear communication.
Mhm.
Clear
Right?
communication.
And to be able to
is-
say, we're all under pressure, we're all
Mhm.
doing our best.
Mhm.
I think that goes a long way.
It really does.
And when someone really, I think that this has been a real gift to the people that we are talking to, because we can see, hey, we're doing that you're doing your best too. And then when
Yes.
you do point that out to them, they're like, oh, Well,
Shoulders
thank
come
you.
down. Yeah,
Right.
shoulders
Because
come down.
now they're not in like, oh, you're telling me I'm not good, or, like,
Right.
yeah.
They're not in defense mode.
Yeah.
They don't feel attacked. So
Right.
Danny's saying from the chat box, it's helping them out also. It can't just be your job.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
It's not
They-
all on you.
As humans, we all need to be cleaning up after ourselves. We all need to be working, doing the cleanup. Like, it's our responsibility as a human to clean up after ourselves. So absolutely teaching our kids and our families that it's okay for them to clean up after themselves.
Right. Well, the reality is, like, if we're super moms and doing everything for our kids, we're not really doing them any favors, because they need to learn to be able to step up and help out and have compassion and learn the skills that maybe we're taking on. So there's so many pieces to this that, I've learned the hard way myself, that in, asking for help, in giving them more responsibility, we're actually helping them be better people and get prepared for life.
Yes. And it goes the same with business. If we have too much on our plates as business leaders, we need to be able to delegate that down to our staff. And what does that look like? It goes both ways. It's the same.
Yeah.
Well, you're learning. What I'm hearing between the lines and getting to know you gals is that you're taking that on yourselves. So you're doing that with your own personal families, and then in your business relationship, you're real conscious of that, because this is your something that you're working from right now. But you're living it out both ways, in your personal life and your business life.
Yes. And it has been pure magic.
And showing up in that every day, absolute magic around us. And then it just feels good. Everything feels good because you're coming from a good spot. Even when things are hard, you're already have the right mindset for it.
Yes.
So even though it's a hard thing, those happen, hard things still happen, but our mindset around it's better. We're not making those assumptions. We're not thinking that someone's not showing up their best. I think one thing I've always said with my kids is, if they could, they would. And I think that falls into always doing your best. Because if somebody knew they had the map, they would do it, right? If it's something that is that simple, like, they just don't understand, right? So,
well, you said it. The map is direction.
Yeah.
Right. It's showing them the direction to go to get to their destination. So you're giving them information that they need,
to figure out what that is.
Exactly. They're not just like, do it. They're like, I remember my daughter when I was, just teaching her how to do chores around the house. Her job was to clean the hall bathroom. And so I showed her how to do it. And she was like, okay, can I write this down? And to me, it was like, you just do it, and just do this and this. And so she got a little 3x5 card and she wrote down all the steps, clean the toilet last, because you don't want to use a towel for anything else. And I got little tips for her, And years later, I found that little card in the bathroom, and I just like, oh my gosh, it's so precious, She wanted to do it right, and but she wanted it written down. And that's just her, how she.
I love a checklist.
Is.
My oldest is the same way. Everything is on a sticky note.
Yeah, I think it's so sweet. So, I mean, you do that for others, and you do that for yourself. You're being kind to yourself, and she was smart, because she's not going to, like, she wanted to do a good job, and she always did. But I just appreciate that, sometimes we need to do things and other people are go, why are you doing that? That's what I need. Right?
I actually, we use that as a technique in our household. So I will be like, I'm going to tell my son something he needs to do, and he will text it to me to make sure he understood. So like, I will say it and he texts it, and then he has it to reference. So I'm like, okay, why don't you go back and check your message, use your tools, and then I don't have to repeat it 500 times. Like,
I love it.
This was
beautiful.
we did a big like spring cleaning in the fall. This is the first time we've ever done a big house cleaning, and get under your beds, do all the things, right?
Mhm.
I was like, no, we're doing all the things where we didn't argue. We didn't end up with me losing my mind, call it
Yeah.
Momzilla. I didn't go Momzilla. I like sat and kind of cried a little bit because I was like, that's so much growth, right? Like that
Yeah.
he's using his tools, he's, making the time and listening,
right,
so it's
right.
really cool watching it happen, and you can teach these things to yourself, and it's really cool.
Well, it's healing for us too, because none of us had a perfect childhood.
Right.
We all had things that happened that, because our parents of the way they were raised,
Mhm.
and pieces are missing. And it doesn't have to be, abusive or
Well,
terrible, but it just, there's things that I think that we get whole in being able
There's
to.
a statistic right now that about 50% of students in high school feel that they're being emotionally abused in some way. So 50%.
That's hot. That's high.
So if we can just keep showing up and showing, more and more
Mhm.
people how to be
Access their
impeccable.
tools.
Be impeccable with your word. Don't take
Yep.
anything personally. Don't make
Yep.
assumptions, and always do your best. It's going to ripple out, right?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And it occurs to me that the first one, I remember reading this too in the Four Agreements. It's all coming back to me now.
Right?
The first one is the foundation, right? For the other three.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's something to remember, that being our word, like, in the old days, before they had contracts, just a handshake was enough.
Right.
Our word is our bond, our word means everything. And I think, that's something that it just supports what you're saying, how being impeccable with your word is being in integrity. It is being whole. It's being,
It's having legacy within your communication,
Yes.
right?
right.
And we have the power to create or destroy with our word. If we are being impeccable with our word, we are creating goodness and strength and beauty with our word. If we are not being impeccable with our word, that's where things come crumbling down.
Yes, because our word can harm too. It's a sword.
Yes, it is a
Mhm.
sword. It's a very, very sharp sword. And, those wounds, when we were kids, they used to say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. That is so not true.
That's
Not
totally
true.
wrong.
Sticks and stones might break your bones, but you'll heal from those injuries. Words are so much deeper scars.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. And kids need to hear that, because that little saying is very, it causes a lot of pain,
Yes, it
because it
does.
diminishes their, their experience.
I
That
feel
was
like that's just like gaslighting in and of itself, right
Mhm.
there. That whole statement, like, is
Yeah.
what gaslighting is.
For sure, for
Right?
sure. So I want to know, let's, as we wind up here, we're getting ready to open the lines to have a conversation with our people that have joined us. But, what is the one thing you really want, the people that are joining us, whether live or when they watch this after the fact on the replay, that you'd want them to know?
It all starts with awareness.
Okay, that's good.
And practice. It's not going to be perfect every day. It's not going to look great every day. If you are doing your best to follow the 4 agreements, you are doing enough. Okay.
Because you're already worthy.
You are already worthy. You're already enough. You
Yeah.
are valid. You have value.
I just got goosebumps. The valid. That's a big piece.
You are valid.
Because you, by working through the 4 agreements and learning how to implement this into your life, you actually start validating yourself.
Yes.
So that outside seeking validation for other people, like, I'm sure it's been amazing for Charlie to watch me learn to validate myself. And
a year ago, you didn't believe in your own intelligence.
Right, at all.
Right. She thought because of the brain injury she had as a child, and reading is more difficult for her, that made her stupid in some way, which is totally untrue, because she is intelligent beyond belief and has a lot of skills and knows how to do a lot of things, but her remembering that she is intelligent. Oh yeah, I went to school for this and I got this certification and I'm doing this and I'm doing all these things. I really am smart. Was like she stands a little taller. It
Right.
does something to your own self-confidence
Oh,
when you
beautiful.
can't blame yourself for anything, when you're not taking on that guilt and shame, because you are doing the best you can. You are not making assumptions. You're not taking anything personally, and you're being impeccable with your word. There's no way you can blame yourself for that.
And you're not
for
believing
anything
the
else.
lies
Exactly.
Exactly.
that somehow got in there, whether
Mhm.
it's from another person or
Mhm.
yourself, something that you said, that you're
Mhm.
standing on the truth and believing, knowing that you can stand with your head high. I love what you said about being enough. We
Mhm.
are enough.
So
Mhm.
then when
We're
you're
more than enough.
doing things like affirmation work and you're
Mhm.
being impeccable with your word, all of a sudden those affirmations are working, right?
Mm,
Because you're being impeccable with your word. You're saying something that resonates with yourself.
right. That
Something
little
you need.
voice doesn't have
Yeah.
the power, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I just got
Beautiful.
I'm covered in goosebumps.
Oh, I know. I just caught them from you. Okay, so which of the four agreements is the hardest for you? And I guess I can ask each of you individually, and why.
I am gonna say to not making assumptions has been really
Yeah,
hard
absolutely.
for me,
Not making assumptions is
because
literally.
um I let's use an example. I assume that my kids will do their chores without being asked, because it's the same thing every day for like the last 10 years, right?
Mm,
They
We
should know by
assume-
now. I
Yeah.
assume they would just do them.
yes.
That doesn't
Or I
happen.
assume that when a fire alarm goes off, it's because there's a fire, right? It's an assumption. But
Mhm.
how many times does the fire alarm go off and there is no fire in sight?
Mhm.
Like we had this happen at our complex this week. There's a malfunction in the main firebox.
Mhm.
All the buildings in the whole complex got all of us out of our apartments, but really, so, and nobody did that to us on purpose, or, somebody was trying to hurt our ears,
Right.
so
Mhm.
just
Well,
assumptions and breaking those old agreements.
yeah.
Mhm.
You know what reminds me, Charlie, is with my kids, same thing, training them up in the way they should go. So when they grow up, they will not depart from it,
Mhm.
And I read one time and it helped me so much. And my kids, as a result, got a lot more grace from me, but they got a lot more accountability too, because it's not what you expect, it's what you inspect. So I put it on me, not them. So instead of like assuming they'll do their work and then I'm disappointed and they catch the flack from it,
Right.
it's, I have to inspect it. It has to be inspected. It's not what you expect them to do, it's what you inspect. And so my kids, they knew they had, certain day of the week, we're going to have, I'm going to come and check to see that you did what you said you were going to do.
Mhm.
Because that holds them to being impeccable with their word, right?
Exactly. You can't be
Yeah.
sloppy with that. So
Right.
That's cool.
I
I like
know.
that. Actually, that's great. That's a great tool for us parents.
It
But
is.
also
It ha-
for coworkers, we think about it like we turn in a project and someone's going to inspect it, right? They're going to look
Right.
at it. That makes sense.
Mhm.
I like that. I think that's good wording for our children
It
too.
helped me a lot. I heard that along the way and it made all the difference in terms of me, like the assumption didn't stand water anymore because
Right.
it's on me. And then they knew they were going to be held accountable. So they
Yes.
go, okay, every Monday or every Sunday or whatever the day, we're going to have, and we're going to check to make sure you did what you said you're going to do.
Mhm.
Well, just in closing, we just have a minute here before we're going to open the lines, but
Mhm.
get your questions ready, guys. If you're, those of you who are listening, if you want to just enter into a conversation or have a question for Charlie or Heather. So which of the agreements have you found the easiest to be able to, especially now that you're, really been doing this for a year, and that you're holding each other accountable, and it's being, it's something you're doing for your personal use and your business.
Mhm. For me, I would have to say that being impeccable with my word has been both difficult, but also the easiest one to start implementing. I still catch myself, but I am doing way better now than I was. Again, it takes practice. We're imperfect humans. But I feel like that being impeccable with my word piece was the easiest to implement to begin with, because that's when I started catching myself telling myself negative things about myself.
That was so hard for me to break. So I would think for me, it was always doing my best, because I would always show up trying to do my best. But at the same time, acknowledging that mindset that I'm already doing my best, so I'm not overachieving, right? So I'm not pushing past that, that I'm okay to just show up and do my best. And that's enough. Like, I don't have to go that extra bit.
You don't have to use all your energy, because you still need to have energy to
just
do other
just
things.
because
get through the rest of the day.
Right.
And I didn't used to get through the rest of the day. That used to be part of my being sick, was I had to take a rest in the middle of the day. And sometimes if I gave too much in the morning, that was it. That's all we got for the day. But by acknowledging myself when I am doing my best and like taking the rest when I need it, I can do so much more.
Right. Because the reality is, life is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right?
Exactly.
We all have to pace ourselves. And so there's, so many, these are the 4 agreements, the 4 tenets, that we're focusing on, but there's so many others that are woven into this, right?
Yes.
But these are the pillars, if you will.
Yes.
And I love that.
And that's why we're talking about it so in-depthly, because each one of these has so many layers to it.
It does.
And you can just keep going.
Yeah. I love the idea of layers, because, it's not one and done. It's not check the list. It's really, like an onion. It has deeper layers and, depth to this that we can talk about.
Even the layers of an onion has layers, right? Because you
Yes.
have the outer coating and the inner membranes and
Right.
the little pockets, and there's so much to it.
There's so much to it, right? And each one makes up the whole. If you just had a layer of it, you wouldn't like, well, what's that?
Exactly.
It's not the integrity of the onion as we know it. So if we bring these 4 agreements together, they contribute to, and this is your title, how they make us, better connections, right?
Yes.
And better communicators too, I would say.
Yes.
Yes.
Because if we are not communicating appropriately, we are not connecting appropriately.
That's so good. That is beautiful. That's your nugget. You got to write that down. It's so true, because there's both there. And then you can even take it another C for community. That's how you build community, is when you all, to the individual, the family unit, in business, in community.
Yes.
The
The ripple
we're all
effect.
doing that. Right. What a difference it would make, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. That's our mission.
Oh, that's a beautiful mission. I love that. Well, before we open it up, and I don't know if anybody has any questions or wants to join in, if you could just unmute yourself and show your screen to let us know that you're wanting to, kind of jump into the communication. So why don't you ladies share with our listeners a little bit more about how they can work with you in your business? Love to hear about that.
Well, there's a lot of different things that we do. We started off with the podcast, and we love to interview women in business and leadership to hear their stories, find out about their why, and help them improve the know, like, and trust factors of their business. And another way we do that is through helping people with social media.
So we do a 45-day success package. So we do an animated graphic, a write-up, and a branded hashtag and 2 more hashtags. And we do a write-up for 45 days. And then you use that content to improve your consistency online. And we do it all branded in your brand with your information, your message,
Your
so that
colors.
you're building your know, like, and trust with your audience, so that when it is time for them, because now there's several things. First, only like 2% of a static post, or 2% of your audience will see a static post. So if you have 1,000 people, or you only have 100 people, that makes a huge difference in how many people are going to see your static image. So that's why we do animated graphics. And video is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, right?
Mhm.
It is definitely attention spans 7 seconds. If you're not getting in, drawn into the conversation or drawn in to engage with, people aren't engaging. People aren't even liking things anymore. They'll look at them, they'll watch them. They're just hitting that like button apparently is too much for people. I don't understand.
There's so many of them.
Yeah, so they're
Yeah.
overwhelmed too.
They're
Right?
overwhelmed. Yeah.
And so, so we where was I going?
So we help with the social media by creating a 45-day social media success package. We also do more consultation services. We've done audio recordings for hypnotherapists. We've done video recordings that we put into graphics.
And we have a package now, like if you have like been a guest on a show, like even this one, and you wanted to repurpose your content and create a podcast, or you want to do a podcast, but you don't know how, and we do those things. We bridge those gaps so that you can grow your know, like, trust factor with your audience.
Well, I love when you came over and asked me to do a podcast with you on lessons gleaned from my garden. I love that you walk your talk. So you do it for yourself. And that was kind of how your business started, right?
Yes.
Because then people would say, "Oh, can you do that for me?"
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened.
That's the important thing that people need to know, is that you guys have been doing this for yourselves, and then as an extension, you have something to offer others who don't have that technology, who are missing pieces of it.
Or it's not their zone of genius.
Or it's not their thing, right?
If you need to be in your room giving a facial, you don't care what's happening on Facebook, right? Like, it's that simple. Like, you need to be where you are shining and being the best part of your business. Yes. Well, the best part of our business is helping others be seen on social media, online, and be noticed and followed. Like, people are getting, I'm so excited for everybody. I get so excited.
Yes. Well, that's what happens when you're in your zone of genius, right? It's a blessing all across the board. So women in leadership, body, soul, mind, and business. You do a podcast also.
Yes. So that is the name of our podcast too. We decided when we licensed as a business, as Women in Leadership, Body, Mind, Soul, and Business, LLP, that we were going to keep the podcast as Women in Leadership, Body, Soul, Mind, and Business podcast. So same name. It's us. We talk about mindset on Mondays. We have 3 episodes a week. We are over 170 episodes have been recorded. We do a weekly reading, which is currently the 4 agreements.
So on the YouTube channel on Sundays, the reading drops, and then on Mondays we talk about it, and on Wednesdays and Fridays we talk either with another person in business, or we have what we call specials, which usually are meditation, or we'll go deeper into a topic. Or a lot of topics have been coming up about like Facebook updates, social media, like how it's some of the things that we do regularly. We've done a podcast on to help other people be able to show up in the same way.
I love that. That's beautiful. Wonderful service, and great way to reach out to the community and engage them as well.
Thank you so
It's been
much.
so fun. I love what we do every day. I'm just so
Well, I can
blessed.
tell that. I can tell that you guys are just, the joy in you is contagious and it
Thank
is
you.
real evident. So, well, this has been so much fun. So Danny says, I'm so glad I could be here today. I had someone walk into my office, so I need to run quick. Thank you for this lovely talk today. So she appreciated and enjoyed it. I know the Gail's from Richmond, Virginia. Gail, you want to give us a thumbs up here? Do you have any questions for the ladies or anything you want to share to enter into our conversation? I'll give you an opportunity.
I just thank you for, common sense, really. It's just been nice to hear.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
You're welcome.
That is so true. I mean, it is. And I think we've gotten away from that. And I think it's time to get back to it, back to basics, back to being our word, back to not, flying off the handle and making things mean things, taking it personally and making assumptions, and then give ourselves a break, always do our best. And I love what you guys said about given the situation, given where you're at, do your best.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you don't feel good. What's your best? Did you do your best anyways? Yes, you did. That's fabulous.
I love that. So, well, thank you so much for any parting remarks before we close here. So by the way, information in the description of the YouTube Conversation to Connect will include information on how to get a hold of Charlie and Heather and their website to learn more.
Sent her all this stuff.
I dropped it in the chat too.
Yes.
Okay.
So that will be put in the description, but any closing remarks that you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, it has been such a pleasure to share this with another circle of people, because I feel like more people, more information, right?
Yes.
More.
And the more that we're talking about these things, the more people that we're impacting, and that just grows, that we're healing more and more. And I think that is just a wonderful gift.
Well, it's
that we can
consistent
do.
with your mission, right?
Yeah.
It is,
We're out
it
in the
is.
world, and so we can't just
Yeah.
keep it to ourselves, right? And so
Yeah. Yes.
I love that. Well,
And
I'm a fan. I love Charlie and Heather. They are amazing, so fun. And I'm just really appreciate getting to know you guys and being able to collaborate and share this really important wisdom book. It says a Toltec wisdom book, the 4 agreements. You've inspired me to dust it off and to read it again. I breezed through it a little bit last night and this morning just in preparation for our talk, but thank you so much for sharing from your heart and sharing your journey with your family and your business. I really appreciate you guys. So in closing, I just want to encourage everyone to make every connection an exceptional connection. Thanks so much. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Cyndi, for having
Thank
us.
you.
Namaste.